Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Rose Designer Series. Today we're going to be designing a bridal bouquet that has a layered texture to it. Today we're going to be using some white roses, blush roses. I've got some blush English garden roses, some ranunculus and lisianthus, and a variety of greenery just to add subtle texture within the bouquet itself. And the first thing we're gonna do, which you will thank me for later, is always cut your tape before you start. Another tip that I want to give you is to have all of your greenery pre-cut. It's very helpful in having the process of bouquet making go smoothly. We are going to start with a white rose. And when I'm working with my flowers, I never want to have my flowers upright. I always want to start working at an angle because I don't want this bouquet to be flat and lack texture and volume. Because this is going to be a spiral effect when I'm done with it, I want to ensure that none of my stems are facing the same direction in terms of having them all exactly straight. So I've taken a piece of New Zealand pit. I'm going to take a piece of seeded eucalyptus, and for the center of my bouquet, I'm going to remove the leaves. And I'm going to turn it around and look at it from a different direction. And as you can see, I'm integrating the different greenery slowly together and building my layers. And no two of my flowers are at the same height, and that's important. And I'm just alternating between the white and the blush, and then every once in a while adding some greenery for texture. I do use the roses first because, again, they're very hardy stems, and I'm going to use the most delicate of the blooms and insert them last. And we're not going to tape this off until the very end. I'm going to show you how it's coming along. And you can see that all of my roses are very much at different heights. And if one of them moves, all you have to do is simply adjust as you go along. As the stems get thicker and the bouquet gets larger, you're gonna need more of your hand to hold on to it. But you don't wanna hold on too tight because then the bouquet will become rigid and it will lack movement. When I insert my ruscus, I tend to have 1 to 2 stems of leaves on each of the breaks that I'm using, and I clean off the rest. You want to make sure that you have clean stems. You don't want messy mechanics underneath the flowers. Just in the center, I'm popping off the leaves. I don't want the leaves to cover my beautiful flowers. I want the blooms to show. And the seeds add beautiful character to your bouquet. The camellia leaves have a beautiful ridge, and they're very pretty. They're nice and shiny. This is how they are naturally. You don't need to enhance them in any way. And I'm going to spin myself around here and make sure that I'm giving attention to all the sides of the bouquet. And I want my English garden roses to be rather prominent in this arrangement, so we're going to make sure that we're bringing them forward. And the layers can be built with our white roses and our blush roses. And you might have to spin your flowers around, making sure that they're facing an appropriate direction. Add different textures every so often to ensure that you have a variation of textures throughout your bouquet. You don't want to overload any one part of it with too much of one type of greenery. I'm adding some spray roses because they're so delicate and pretty. And if the spray rose has buds that are much lower than what I have here, I would likely remove them. Again, we don't want messy mechanics below the blooms of the flowers. In this case, everything is at a pretty good height and level. I do like the variation of levels of blooms, but I don't need to remove anything off of this particular stem. And I always support my spray roses with a nice strong greenery. That way they are a delicate stem and they might fall, so they're gonna hold their integrity with the support of my leaves. Start adding some seeded eucalyptus, but I'm going to leave the leaves on the stems. Because we're getting to the outer side portions of the bouquet, I like to see the leaves and the texture. And you want to have a cutter handy, just in case, for example, like this, where I have 3 breaks of the leaves on one stem, but I just want to use one of the breaks. Support my seeded eucalyptus with a stronger greenery. My seeds will still cascade, but it'll give structure to the seeded eucalyptus as well. Always maintaining that spiral shape. So as you can see, my stems are beautiful spiral shape, and this bouquet will hold its own. And we're always inserting around on the outside and continuing to work around the bouquet. Now as I'm adding greenery, I'm gonna need to clean a little bit more of the stem and the leaves off the stem, because the closer I get to the outer part, the lower the stem is gonna go. And again, I don't want messy mechanics. I don't want too much greenery below the blooms. I want the greenery and the leaves to be above and within the actual flowers themselves. And so here we have what is becoming a very beautiful layered bouquet design. Spin this around because I want to give some attention to the back here. And I want to start incorporating my ranunculus. The ranunculus I like to have come out of the bouquet a little bit. And I'm just going to fit the ranunculus into the bouquet. Again, we're still following the spiral shape, ensuring the stems are all moving in the right direction, the same direction, and that you're not crushing the stem as well. So you want to make sure that you're firm with your holding, but not too firm where you're crushing the stems. I just love the beautiful texture of the ranunculus, and they really add a lovely element to this layered design. So I've incorporated the ranunculus, and now I just want to add a few touches of lisianthus. And in this case with bouquets, I like to have my lisianthus in a single format, so single bloom format, which I've pre-cut again prior to making this bouquet. So I can start inserting from the top and then continue pulling from below. So that way I'm not damaging and touching the bloom too much, because these blooms are very delicate and they're white. So the more you handle them, the more you touch them, the more they'll show wear and tear. In this case, I'm going to remove this extra break off the stem, and that's where my cutters come in handy. And you want to take a bit of a look, make sure that you're happy with your proportions, that the bouquet is balanced, and I think I'm just going to add one more stem of lisianthus. So I'm really happy with the composition of this so far. And the only thing that needs a little bit of my attention are going to be seeing the stems. I'm not a fan of seeing the naked stems of the flowers below. And I just want to make sure that my mechanics are clean. And so all I'm going to do is come back with some of my camellia. I'm gonna clean off the lower leaves, and I'm just gonna place that here, and that's gonna frame my roses beautifully. And it just really gives a beautiful texture to the outer portion of the bouquet. Here is our bridal bouquet. We're gonna tie this off now. I like to use slender waterproof tape. This gives me enough structure and strength to hold my stems together without being too thick to pin ribbon in it later. And you wanna make sure your tape is cut long enough to go around it at least once fully. I always like to secure that with another piece just in case. There's quite a few stems in this bouquet, and it would be a shame to have worked this hard to build it and then it come apart because you didn't put enough tape. I like to tape as high up below the balloons as I possibly can. I like to call this the waist of the bouquet. So at the slenderest portion of the stems, that's where my stems all meet in that spiral shape. And that's going to be where I put some ribbon to tie it off. So I'm going to cut the stems. And typically what we do is not cut them too short initially until you're ready to send out the bouquet. So the longer you have the stems, the further away the bride would be able to hold the bouquet towards her body. And you want to see the beauty of the flowers. You don't just want to see the side. So the shorter you cut the stems, all the while remaining long enough that the tape will still hold, the bride will be able to turn her bouquet and the photographer will be able to take beautiful professional photos of your flowers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of seeing how a layered bridal bouquet comes together. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the designer series with the Social Rose. And don't forget to leave your comments and questions below. We'd love to hear from you. See you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can stay tuned for the next episode. And if you have any questions or comments for us, please, that's so good. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. It's like a wedding in here.